This year, as part of Radio 4's Today programme Guest Editor season, we invited Baroness Theresa May, the former Conservative Prime Minister, to influence our New Year's Eve edition. She wanted to talk about violence against women. Tackling the issue was a central priority for her, first as Home Secretary and then later as Prime Minister. She was joined by John and Amy Hunt, whose family were killed by Kyle Clifford. Her Majesty the Queen wanted to meet with the Hunts and Baroness May to discuss domestic violence, a subject she has felt strongly about for many years. What you're about to see is an extended edit of that discussion. We're here together today to try and raise awareness of domestic violence and violence against women and girls, especially in the run-up to Christmas time and New Year, when we know charities and helplines receive a 15% or so rise in calls on the issue. We've brought you, John and Amy, together with Her Majesty in light of what happened to your family and your desire to help protect more women and change some men's behaviour, and an issue that is very close to our guest editor's heart and working life, Baroness May. I also know that Your Majesty and His Majesty the King wrote to you after what happened, after the murders of your wife and two daughters and your mum and sisters, Amy. So I just want to say to all of you, thank you so much for being here, and to you, John and Amy, in particular. John and Amy, if I could come to you first, perhaps you, John, and just start by saying it must be something to be here with Her Majesty and to be in this situation overall. Why do you want to talk today?
Amy and I have travelled such a long way since the 9th of July 2024, the day the girls were murdered. And one thing we've realised is that there is a growing capacity to find energy and to find purpose, which on the 10th of July we thought had disappeared forever.
And Amy, you would never have imagined you'd be in this position.
No. And I think that's the thing that has become so obvious to us over the last year and a half, is that domestic violence and domestic abuse stretches across classes, ages, locations. And I think no one anticipates being in this situation. And I think that's the reason why stopping it, doing what we can to stop this horror that is inflicted on so many women and their families is so important, because you just don't know who might face abuse, violence.
Yes. The statistics, when you look through and you see what they are, and I know, Your Majesty, you've been working on this for years now, you care deeply. 1 woman is killed in the UK every 3 days, as is the estimate. And I know that, the Hunts case touched you deeply.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to John and Amy for coming here today in these very difficult circumstances, and how important it is for them to talk about it, which I know they do all the time, not only for all the other people who it has happened to and who it will happen to, but for themselves, because I think it's a cathartic moment for them. The more they can talk about it, the more you can try and get rid of these terrible demons and the terrible memory of what happened to you.
And also talking about it.
Talking
still,
about it.
The taboo around this can be huge.
It's huge. I mean, and that's why I think it's so wonderful. They can come up and talk to people about it. It's going to help so many people.
Let me bring in our guest editor today, Baroness May. You brought in the Domestic Violence Act during your time as Prime Minister. Before that, this is an area you've been working on for many, many years. You introduced coercive control as a crime during your long stint as Home Secretary. Have we made enough progress, or are we where we should be?
I think it's true to say that we have made some progress, but there is more progress to be made. There are many still who don't quite realise what this can be and how it can be how it can be experienced by people. It's also necessary for us to look at, if you like, the other side of the coin and think about working with perpetrators and how we can only try ensure that this doesn't happen to anybody in the future if there are no perpetrators in the future. And so we need to support victims, but we also need to deal with perpetrators.
I mean, I think it's very important, John and Amy, to remember what happened here. You know, Kyle Clifford was jailed, given 3 whole life sentences. He went to prison paralysed, having shot himself with the same crossbow he used to kill your daughters, his ex, Louise, after raping her, and your other daughter, Hannah. He stabbed your wife, Carol, your mum, to death. How are you, more than a year on, and having got through that trial? What is it like at the moment for you?
It remains really difficult on a minute-by-minute basis, but you have to try and find the strength in our position to arm yourself with as many tools as possible that are going to help you get through that next hour, get through that next day. If at the risk of embarrassing Amy, she's been my best counsel from the word go. We talk all the time. I used to say I couldn't do it without you, but now I say I can do it with you. And you do gain wisdom and confidence that all right, it's not the future you wanted, but there is a small fragment of future that exists still for you.
I think there's a huge part of us that's still in disbelief, in shock, and I think perhaps we'll be in that state for the rest of our lives, given the magnitude of our loss. We miss them every single minute of the day, every single minute of the day. One of the things that has provided such strength to us and to everyone who loved Louise and Hannah and my mum and still loves them is their example and the love that they gave everyone, the care, the joy, the positivity, the humour that they gave to the world. I think we're all using that to sustain ourselves. When people pass away, the love still stays.
Yes.
And we feel that so strongly.
Spotting signs and behaviour before things happen is one thing, but we also know a lot of women die or are severely hurt by those who have loved them. And that was your experience, wasn't it?
Louise and Carl were together for 18 months. That first year in particular was exactly as you would wish any relationship involving your child to go. They were demonstrably happy. Louise was really content. They did lovely things together. Now, his behaviour in small ways deteriorated, but only towards the end of the relationship. And Louise was very mindful of that, and she finished the relationship. She knew it had no future.
They'd broken up, you know, and she had a right to do that, and that's what she did. And we also know, Your Majesty, that can be the most dangerous time.
A friend of mine asked me to a meeting of a charity called Safe Lives. The relations and the partners and the friends of women who had been killed or attacked or very badly wounded, they got up and they told their stories. And I remember being just so shocked and horrified by the whole thing, and all the people sitting around the table, there were a lot of, people who you wouldn't have thought would be moved by this sort of thing. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. We don't realise that it's happening all the time. In the case of Joanna, it was divorce, and he came back and he murdered her.
In the case of what happened with Joanna Simpson, she was bludgeoned to death by her ex, came back to the home while their children were hiding in another room.
The more I dug into it and scratched the surface, the more horrific stories I discovered. And as you say, it can happen to anybody. We can go on talking about it, but we've got to get to the root of the matter, is the perpetrators, especially when they're young. If you can get them early enough and teach them respect for women, I think that's so important to get into schools, which I know is something, John, you're very keen to do. And I think the more I look at it, it is the most important thing we can do now.
Let me bring you in, Amy, on this point. And I'm just aware of what we hear from charities as well about an explosion of misogyny in the online space. And you knew Kyle as well. Can you put this together now with what you know of misogyny? You know, you've grown up online, and the radicalisation of young men by other men is a big problem.
It's a huge problem, and I suppose if men have not had the best examples in life, when they reach out to an online space looking for guidance and for some sort of mentor, I think that these men in the online spaces, such as Andrew Tate and his ilk, they provide that, and they provide easy answers.
I'm 60 now. Throughout my life, through family and friends, I've been surrounded by fantastic men, fantastic role models. So to have this very dark world opened up to me in the starkest possible fashion has been jarring.
Baroness May, I mean, how do you legislate to stop some men hating women?
Actually, the paradox is you almost have more impact once men actually see this as an issue and are willing to talk about it. And that's why John talking about the experience and being part of this is, I think, so important. I think that you mentioned the online space. This is terribly difficult. It doesn't take you many steps as a young boy just perhaps looking for something about your health or bodybuilding or something like that. It's not many clicks away before you're taken into some really dark and dangerous material. Once you're there, then the algorithm will continue to send you that sort of material. And you start living in an echo chamber where the role model you see is on that online space and not the sort of male role models that John has talked about.
John?
Fascinating to hear you say that, Baroness May. It leads me on to two things that I think are absolutely vital. One effective change that I don't see couldn't be made overnight is banning smartphones in schools across the board. We have a duty of care to look after our children, girls and boys. Give these children a window in their day where they just cannot access. It took me a shorter amount of time to access hardcore pornography than it did to register for a grocery delivery with my supermarket. And kids are smart. They know their way around, and if they want to, they can access things like that so easily, and it's so damaging at such a young age.
I was also very struck, Your Majesty, by how moved His Majesty the King had been by stories you've uncovered in your work on this. You know, he said some of those stories that you've uncovered moved him to tears.
It's so important that we're all sitting here and talking about it, because the majority of people actually don't want to know. It's been a taboo subject for so long. People haven't talked about it. I remember something that had been lurking in the back of my brain for a very long time, that when I was a teenager, I was attacked on a train, and I'd sort of forgotten about it, but I remember at the time being so angry. It was anger, and I thought, why is this? Well, it was sort of boy. I thought it was an old man, was probably not a great deal older than me, but and I think...
And attacked in what way?
On a train.
You were on a train?
On a train.
And someone you didn't know?
Somebody I didn't know. I was reading my book, and, this, man attacked me, and I did fight back, and I got off. I remember getting off the train, and my mother looking at me and saying, why is your hair standing on end, and why is the button, missing from your coat? And
oh gosh, so it was physical.
I've been attacked, but I remember anger, and I was so furious about it, and it sort of lurked for many years. And I think, when all the subject about domestic abuse came up, and suddenly you hear a story like John and Amy's, it all, it's something that I feel very strongly about and, want to do.
Because people bury things, like I suppose that's what you're
saying,
sort of move
like
on, and but it's part of society, and it's part of the world we move in, and also we don't share. So thank you for saying that, especially in this context. Is there any way, from your view, that this could have been stopped? Like, have you thought about that?
Thank you for sharing that story first, Your Majesty, because that's it takes a lot to share these things, because every woman has a story. And I think in terms of stopping what happened to us, we found a real lack of clear warning signs in Louise and Kyle's relationship. And so I say, if you don't know you're experiencing abuse, you don't feel fear. And so you cannot protect yourself. And that's always the message, is that women should protect themselves and women shouldn't go out on their own on a train and women shouldn't do X, Y and Z. And I think that's why the onus must at some point shift, at least in a 50-50 perspective to the perpetrators. I don't think Kyle Clifford was born a monster, in short. I don't think he was born destined to do something like this, as I don't believe most perpetrators are. I think it's the society that shapes. I don't believe that men, or some men, are destined to this future, and I think that's where our collective responsibility comes in, to address all the sections where they may not be discouraged from treating women in certain ways.
To come to you, Baroness May, you were Home Secretary actually for a very long time. This is one of the hardest things, one of the hardest crimes, because it's in the home. It's in that space. You as a Conservative with a capital C, you believe in the family unit, you believe in autonomy, you believe in personal freedom, of course, but to police this domestic space, especially with a lot of women not trusting the police, this is really tricky territory, isn't it?
It is very difficult because we can legislate. We legislated for things like Clare's Law, so that a woman who worries about her partner can go to the police and ask them if this individual has been identified previously as a potential risk. But you can legislate as much as you like, but at the end of the day, it is about attitudes and it's about mindsets. And this is why the points about education, about what people are able to see online, are so important, because the law isn't going to stop somebody who has just been so inculcated with that sense of anger and violence that they want to go out and do something like this. But we can try to stop that by their previous life, if you like, the education that they receive, showing them those positive male role models, so that they are less influenced by the negatives that they see.
I did just want to give the final word to you both, if I may, which is, to think of Louise, Hannah and Carol, and how we should remember them, because we didn't know them, but we're talking about them.
If you can just imagine anybody you know who has a joy of life, who wants to pass that on, who wants to share, who wants to encourage, who engages as well with a 4-year-old as with a 94-year-old, who cared about their community, who cared about their friends, who loved to have a laugh, who acknowledged their mistakes. They were my family, but they were perfect.
John, thank you. Is there anything you want to add, Amy?
They had a sad death, but they did not have a sad life. And their life was full of so much love and joy and happiness and fun and all of those things. And I know that is, alongside tackling this very prevalent issue that took them away from us, I think it's so important to remember that they are not defined by what happened to them. The man who did this to them is defined by that darkness. And I think that's the same for all women. I think Giselle Pellico had a really poignant point when she said that shame must change sides. And if you're someone who has been hurt or abused by a man, the shame is not yours to carry in whatever form that comes. The shame rests with the perpetrators.
I'd just like to say, wherever your family is now, they'd be so proud of you both.
Thank you.
And they must be from above smiling down on you and thinking, my goodness me, what a wonderful, wonderful father, husband, sister. Anyway, they'd just be so proud of you both.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
To anybody listening, you're not alone, and we hope that you'll be heard if this affects you directly, and we'll make sure that you have the right numbers for support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you or someone you know have been affected by the issues discussed in this programme, please visit BBC Action Line to find information on organisations that can help.